Sure, I think we'll get started. We'll give it a few seconds for everybody to join, but thank you everyone for joining the webcast between Huron and Oracle, presenting a modern approach to financial consolidation and close. So for today's webcast host, my name is Don Beeger. I'm a senior director within Huron's ES&A group, and Rich Wilkie, vice president of Oracle Product Management, will join us as well. We'll have a customer panel group from Blue Cross Blue Shield that we'll introduce as we get to the slide from a case study where we'll share with you the experience that Blue Cross Blue Shield went through their implementation of financial close cloud service. So our agenda for today, Rich will walk us through a little bit about the product strategy with respect to the recent on-premise versions of Hyperion Financial Management, as well as the evolution to the cloud and some of the roadmap items that are out in front of us. We'll talk about our featured case study, Blue Cross Blue Shield, where we'll ask Janine some specific questions about how their implementation went, some lessons learned, and also Wei Wong will join us from a standpoint of Huron project management and talk about the overall implementation timeline and some of the tips and tricks that we experienced through the implementation. And at the end, we will have an open panel QA session for you to chime in. So just a little bit about Huron from a standpoint of who we are. Huron Consulting Group, formed in 2002 with about 200 professionals. We've obviously grown considerably over the years. Now over about 3,200 plus professionals in each of the leading expertise. We're a publicly traded firm on the NASDAQ with revenue approaching 800 million. Year-over-year growth has been continually advancing this year, targeting another 6 to 10%. We are headquartered in Chicago, Illinois, with offices in New York, San Francisco, Denver, Atlanta, geographically dispersed across the United States, as well a global organization with our offshore operations and managed services components. We are an organization that's focused on transformation and change, and we're not just an EPM shop or an ERP shop. We're focused on the overall transformation of a business, and it starts from our top down with our CEO Jim Roth, who really is a proponent for Huron to be, leaders in the community. Just last Friday, Huron was engaged in a day of service where each of the local offices went out to local community sites and helped, at food banks, other philanthropic organizations to help the community. Huron extends the business process into our community development. We are a full service offering, from advisory to overall EPM and ERP practices, as well as managed services. So we can bring you from start to finish from an overall strategy and growth expectations and helping you through your overall business models, as well as just overall strategy from implementation to process. When you look at the different areas of the business and service offerings that Huron brings to the table, we are a full service firm. Today we're going to be focused on one specific area on the financial close, particularly the financial close cloud solution of Oracle's offering, where we've got substantial experience in this industry. Specifically, when you look at some of our select FCCS clients that we've implemented over the last 2 to 3 years since the inception of the financial close cloud solution, you can see it's across a number of different industries. Some of the company names up there should resonate very well when we span across the globe from a standpoint of healthcare or life sciences or other industries such as manufacturing and retail. Some of the in-flight or live implementations listed above included multi-pillar products. So it wasn't just focused on financial close, but spanned to planning and budgeting, planning and forecasting, master data strategies, account reconciliations. So when we looked at the multi-pillar aspect of some of these implementations and some of the early adopters of the financial close product, which came to market in May, I believe, of 2016, we were on the forefront of implementing the solution with some of the early adopters, such as Shram, who is listed there as a multi-pillar implementation. Our case study today will be with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, also a multi-pillar implementation, including EPBCS, which is the Enterprise Planning and Budgeting Solution, as well as EDMCS, which is the Master Data Solution on the cloud. Again, innovative in the integration between the solutions, and we'll discuss that a little bit more in detail. For now, I'm going to turn it over to Rich Wilkie to walk through the overall product roadmap and strategy that Oracle has in place for the upcoming months. So, Rich.
All right. Thank you very much, Don. Appreciate it. So welcome, everybody. So first today, I always think it's important whenever we have these opportunities to talk to customers and you know, about what's going on, just to kind of make sure everybody understands what is the actual roadmap and strategy for the on-premises solution. So obviously from an Oracle perspective, we are active both in the cloud as well as on-prem, and we really want to make sure people get the right and most accurate information. So next slide, Don. So of course, it wouldn't be me or anyone from Oracle talking without going over our safe harbor statement. You know, I am going to cover some roadmap items today, some future facing items, and it's important to understand that you know, the development, release, timing, and pricing of any of these can change at any time. So just understand that I'm going to give you the best possible guidance I can, but changes are possible. Next slide, Don. So this actually came out, I want to say 2 years ago next month. So this is not a current change that I'm going to talk about, but it seems like the message doesn't always get through to people. I think there's sometimes people just maybe aren't quite, you know, getting the right information, and so that's why I love these opportunities to talk. So Oracle came out and said, we're going to have premier support, so that's our top level support, for all of our on-premises applications through 2030. So this isn't specific to HFM or Hyperion Planning or even the old Oracle or Hyperion or EPM products. This is for all of on-premises Oracle applications through 2030. So that right now is 11 years from now. So it's a pretty awesome sort of lifetime. Remember, this came out in 2017, so that really was a 13-year commitment at that point. There will be some changes to the way we're going to handle sort of the delivery, right? So the enhancements are going to be driven more by customer needs. It's going to be less of the big bang major release approach and more of sort of the small patch set updates, smaller level of new features released over time. So it really will follow a little bit more of the way the cloud does updates, but I think it certainly will give customers that assurance that the on-prem world is around, it does have a roadmap. Next slide, please. So there's always some important links for you to go ahead and get, and I think it's important to understand, first of all, the difference between Premier, Extended, and Sustaining. There's some links here, but honestly, the easiest way is just to Google Oracle Lifetime Support. Google works awesome for that. There's also a couple policies you can check on the support portal that will explain to you some of the grace periods for things like how does 11.122 versus 11.123 versus 11.124 relate and all of that. So this slide really kind of covers the here and now and sort of important things if you want to look that up. Next slide. So what we have right now is the 11.124 releases and Premier support through December of 2020. Extended support will be available through December of 2021. So that was roughly, I want to say, a 2.5-year extension that was provided there. The 11.2 release is scheduled for mid-2019. So mid is pretty darn soon. So I can tell you that mid is coming. And you have to look at 11.2. That's really that release that's going to go through December of 2030. So 11.2 will be that major release. It's focused on certainly defect fixing. It's focused on what we call our Fusion middleware or our platform updates. That's the thing that gives you all of your Office support, browser support, database support, you know, like all those versions. It's all what we call platform. So all that stuff will be included in this release. And then that will be under Premier support through 2030. So Premier support for 11.124 through December of 2020, you can get extended through December of 2021. And then 11.2 coming out shortly will take you through December of 2030. So it's important just to understand those kind of items and what this impact is. Next slide. So I just wanted to make sure everyone got that because I think it's crucial to know, but I want to shift our focus now and talk a little bit about the cloud. So, you know, it's interesting because you have these conversations with people and some people say, I'm not sure about EPM in the, in the cloud and what I do it, but, you know, we've polled our customers and 79% indicate they have plans for EPM cloud within the next 2 years. That's up from a year ago. So you can see that EPM in the cloud, and EPM includes the planning business process, the consolidation and close business process, account reconciliations, narrative reporting, all that kind of stuff is in what we call EPM. But pretty much all of your peers are looking at the cloud as the next wave to go. Next slide. And within that, they're really looking at why to do it, right? So, you know, probably the number one thing per this slide certainly is avoiding those dreaded upgrades. So I've done this job for 20 years now, and I can tell you that upgrades can be a challenge for people. It's a big investment. It's a lot of work to do it, data tie-outs, all that kind of stuff, hardware procurement. And so when you move to the cloud, you no longer have those upgrades. You have updates. But we manage all of the back-end infrastructure. So that's a huge advantage, a big cost savings, quite honestly, for people. It also lets you avoid that infrastructure investment. I don't know about you, but a lot of companies don't want to be in the business of sort of these servers and managing servers and infrastructure and all of that. The cloud really takes all that away and lets you focus on your core competencies. Literally every presentation I've ever done with a customer, lower TCO was, or total cost of ownership, was one of their presentation points on why they moved to the cloud. Avis, Arby's, I just did one at our Modern Business Experience with Logisticare. All of these people will basically come through and say, when you evaluate total cost of ownership, it's less in the cloud. It's just a benefit to move to the cloud. Ignoring functionality, ignoring upgrades and all that stuff, it's just the cost savings alone makes it worthwhile, plus all the benefits. People love the access to new products. It's just much easier to deploy because you don't have all that stuff up above. And it's really a common platform. So EPM Cloud is a single platform. Unlike some of our on-prem world where we had sort of separate products, that common platform makes the world a whole lot much easier for the end user as well as for the administrators. Next slide. So, like I said, I've been doing this job a little bit. People used to say to me, I'm not sure about consolidation and close in the cloud. You can see that we're in the majority now of more respondents are saying, yes, it makes sense. That number will only continue to grow. But you can see consolidation is now second. It was fifth place just a few years ago. So more and more people are recognizing this is a safe, secure way to do things, and it's really, we're not the first. And you'll see you're not the first when we get to the next couple slides. This is a pretty proven practice that's used prevalent, across all of our customer base. Next slide. So Gartner does this thing called the Magic Quadrant, or the MQ. The 2019 MQ is not out yet, so we still have the 2018. I think Gartner releases the 2019 sometime in the summer time frame. You can see here, I mean, it's maybe not the easiest to see, but Oracle is recognized up in the upper right, which is really the leaders and the visionaries. So some people care about the Gartner report and think it's very important. Some people don't. We like to show it because Gartner is a very respected analyst that does a pretty thorough review. And honestly, they give us, they scrutinize us, and they give us great results here. So I think that's a very positive thing from our standpoint. Next slide. But also, I think it's important to understand, when I talked about earlier and on-prem, and you talk about HFM, you're kind of talking about consolidation. And then there's, but when you talk about the cloud, you're talking about the close. And there's a difference between consolidations and the close. Consolidations is one activity. The close is things like your overall calendar aspect, right? Everyone has a closed calendar where they're just managing activities in the close and making sure things are getting done on schedule, and we're managing all those activities. That's just a process that's just part of the cloud from our perspective. It wasn't really part of the of on-prem world. Everybody does reconciliations. Everybody has to do their tax provision. Everybody has to do like transfer pricing. Everybody has to do narrative reporting. Everybody wants to automate and make things faster. That's that intelligent process automation. From our perspective, those are all just part of the cloud. Those aren't like separate things. They're just part of the cloud. They're just really something that you get when you move to EPM Cloud. And I think it's important to understand that the cloud not only has that TCO stuff I talked about earlier, but it really does functionally just give you more functionality than what you had before. Next slide. So I know it's hard to believe because in my picture I look so young, but I was a microcontroller administrator. That's the way far left, way back, not in the 83, but sometime in the early 90s, I was a microcontroller administrator. So I've been doing this for a long time. Quite honestly, my team's been doing this for a long time. I'll tell you a little bit about that when I get through this slide. But microcontroller was the very first consolidation product by a company before Hyperion that became Hyperion. That evolved into something called Hyperion Enterprise that some of you may know, that it still has customers using it today, which evolved into Hyperion Financial Management, which then we added like some additional products kind of surrounding that, and that is all eventually morphed into what we call the EPM Cloud, or Financial Consolidation and Close in the Cloud. So the cool thing about this is, I got to be honest with you, I'm a microcontrol guy. I have a person on my team who is the enterprise product manager. She designed HFM. My team has 30 years experience, 20 years experience, 18 years experience, 25 years. So one, we're old, but two, we also have been doing this an awful long time, and we know what customers like. So as we've moved through this process, we've really kept what works, but innovated where businesses demanded it, where people wanted to do new things, where technology allowed it. So we've always built on that great platform of knowledge and leadership that we've had, but we keep innovating to get better at it. Next slide. So this is for EPM Cloud in general, which covers all the different platforms. I think what's important to note here is there's something like, and this slide will actually get updated quarterly, so this slide will be updated in a month. Our fiscal year ends end of May. So we'll be well over 4,000 customers at that point. 6,400 subscriptions. That means we have multiple customers. We have customers using multiple subscriptions. We're over 90 countries, over 20 industries. What this means is, hey, you're not the first, right? You're definitely not the first when you look at this slide. There's just a lot of people doing it. This is very prevalent. It's just part of the marketplace right now. And so it's important to understand there is significant driving momentum, and there's basically a quorum of this is the way to go for people to run their financials. Next slide. So if we think about sort of our approach as we looked at it for the cloud, I said we sort of built on that 30 years of experience, right? So one of the things that we said is, okay, what do people commonly love about products like Hyperion Enterprise or HFM? And what do they have to customize? if you know HFM, HFM is a great tool, can do many things. It's also heavily customizable, lots of VB script and coding and things like that. So one of the things we said is, let's try to take some of those things that we know the majority of customers customize into HFM and just make it out-of-the-box functionality. So we really focused on best practices, driving into the product, extending that out. That's everything from cash flow to certain chart of accounts and other dimension members. We've added system dimension members that commonly people track, things like movement, things like data source, just things that everybody does, CTA calculations, roll forwards. Those are all things that, quite honestly, you had the VB script code in HFM. We have a whole KPI metric library that we deploy with the product. So there's just lots of forms. All this stuff just comes pre-built where you don't have to do it. So it's a really great advantage to do that. We also, because we're on sort of this cloud infrastructure, we can do things like reduce the maintenance cost because Oracle is managing that across all those 4,000 customers versus you doing it for your one. We have the same great integrations we've always had, drill back, all that kind of good stuff. And we also can now start leveraging a lot of the new technologies, things like artificial intelligence, machine learning. Those are all awesome opportunities for us on relatively short-term roadmaps to start showing real tangible benefits to customers. So stay tuned on that. Next slide. So if you're an HFM customer, the thing we always want to tell you is, hey, we can do the same stuff that HFM can do. The last thing, process management, was just recently added to the solution this month. It was deployed early to some early adopter customers as well. But everything else that you can do in HFM, you can do in the cloud today. So, people always say to me, like, I'm an HFM customer, when is the right time to move to the cloud? I've been saying for, probably the last 6 months or more. Now, we have no concerns. Come on, it's awesome. The opportunities are there. You'll get the same results, but you'll get all those extra things that I talked about earlier for the cloud that are available only in the cloud. So I think that's sort of the message we really try to deliver to those HFM customers is, hey, the market's ready for you, or we're ready for you, come. And I'll show you a little bit how we're making that easier for you. Next slide. So this is just an example of sort of comparing out of the box between the cloud and to HFM. And so I kind of rattled through some of these things like opening balance carry forward, opening balance ownership changes, balance to balance sheet. Those are just 3 examples where in HFM you were doing VB script rules. In the cloud, they're just out of the box. Things like translations are same translation overrides in HFM. You had to know VB script. I think the redeeming thing of that HFM column is you have to become a pretty good VB script expert. In the cloud, we've really eliminated the need to be a scripting expert, except in one area, which is really sort of your opportunity to customize. Otherwise, we really focus on configuration. Even things like complex consolidation rules, things like minority interest, goodwill eliminations, all that kind of stuff is UI driven, and we actually ship with 9 pre-built rules that do things out of the box, or you can easily take those and edit those, but they're not script. So I think it's important to understand, really, we don't want you to be a coder. We want you to be a finance person who can visualize and understand what's happening in the tool. There's always an opportunity to do some of that customization, and certainly we provide that opportunity in the product, but we don't require it. And I think that's one of the key differences. We don't require that. We make it available to you. Now, certainly a lot of customers take advantage of it in small doses, but for the most part, the out-of-the-box functionality plus configuration, not customization, is key. Next slide. So I said, we love those HFM customers to take a look at the cloud if that's one of their, if that's an opportunity for them. We do have in our EPM Cloud Marketplace a migration toolkit. So the easiest way to find the Oracle EPM Cloud Marketplace is to Google Oracle EPM Cloud Marketplace. You get there, there's a link in this slide deck too where you can link to it. It actually is a migration tool, and it's got a PowerPoint and a Word document white paper which walk you through the entire process. It's a really complete set of functionality that will help you do that migration if you so choose. Next slide. We also have a reports to EPM Cloud. So if you're moving your HFM app, it naturally makes sense to move some of your reports that you've developed. So there is a link for this as well. So really, it's not only just move the app, it's move the reports as well. So it's a pretty cool addition. This has been, they both have been out there, I want to say, for almost since August of last year. Next slide. So from a roadmap standpoint, and I'm not going to kill the roadmap too much. I think what you can see is everything on the left is what the product does today. It says recent, but quite honestly, some of the stuff has been around for almost a year now. The left side just shows you we can do everything. The middle column are things that we're working on in the near term. Like equity pickup is actually coming out in about the next month or so. That's out of the box functionality if you need to do that equity pickup calculation. We're adding the ability to do like contribution input, parent input. Think of that as sort of the ability at upper level to impact your parents and not impact the actual child themselves. The ability to extend the way you do FX to include more rate accounts. The ability to input data at different currencies. That's what input currency is. So there's a lot of neat stuff that's happening in that near term. Everything in the middle is relative near term. That will really extend and deepen the functionality that the tool provides. So we do all this stuff, a lot of this stuff today, but you just have to do a lot of customization. This is just productizing even more of it. If you look forward over on the right-hand side, that's a little bit further out. That's where you start putting in things like machine learning capabilities. Machine learning makes the most sense for repetitive tasks, right? Like, and think of the close, it's every month you do a repetitive task. So we can start learning what common things you do and take those actions automatically instead of forcing you to do those yourself. So a lot of neat stuff coming on the roadmap. I think the point of this slide is just we do a lot today and we're going to keep adding more and more to it. Next slide. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Don, who's going to take us through our panel or our case study. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Rich. So Huron's one of the market leaders in cloud deployments with over 35 FCCS implementations, done several more EPBCS or planning forecasting cloud service implementations, over 200, I think, over the last couple of years. So we are one of the largest SIs and service integrators in North America, and have done several of the deployments. And been instrumental in the development of the roadmap items that Rich just mentioned. You know, and all these implementations, whether we've done it at Blue Cross Blue Shield, at Stripe, Dorman, Nissan Manufacturing, you name it. We've experienced the different advanced consolidation topics that come up through an implementation. But that said, you know, we don't want you to hear it from us. We want you to hear it from the customers. So today, we have the opportunity to discuss the case study that occurred at Blue Cross Blue Shield. Janine Holdwick will be our panelist from Blue Cross Blue Shield. She's the manager of financial reporting. I'll let her introduce herself here in a second. And also Wei Wong, who was the project manager on the Blue Cross Blue Shield implementation. Wei has several cloud implementations under her belt. Specifically, I mentioned Stripe was one of the main implementations of payment systems implementation on the West Coast that included both financial close consolidation and account reconciliations, as well as several others like Dropbox and now engaged at DSW in Columbus. That said, Janine, you want to go ahead and give a quick introduction?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much. Yes, my name is Janine Holdwick. I've been here at Blue Cross now for 5 years as the financial reporting manager. I have over 20 years experience in the accounting arena. My industries have been healthcare as well as the automotive industry. Wei?
Hello, everyone. My name is Wei Wong. I'm a director in the ES&A practice, specialized in the financial close and consolidation products. So as Don mentioned, I've worked with Janine to partner up with her to implement both FCCS and EDMCS at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan last year. So very excited about that. And then on the same vein, been running a few implementations and ranging from account reconciliations all the way to reporting and consolidations. From background experience, have both a functional and a technical expertise in this space.
Excellent. Thank you both for joining the call today, and look forward to the question and answer session here in a second. You know, from a standpoint of an overall case study, when you look at Blue Cross Blue Shield, you know, the consolidation was done on Excel prior to the solution being implemented. So from a standpoint of additional products that were in the mix of Blue Cross Blue Shield, as Wei mentioned, EDMCS, which is a master data strategy solution. If you're familiar with the old data relationship management tool, that is now the cloud version, so to manage the metadata. Blue Cross Blue Shield also leveraged EPBCS, which is the Enterprise Planning and Budgeting Cloud Service. Again, a multi-pillar implementation involved in the overall solution. So from a standpoint of engaging Huron as a preferred partner to implement the financial close and consolidation solution, Wei and Janine, you know, started down a path of implementing the software, gathering the requirements, doing an overall transformation, not just of the Excel process, but the overall extended close. So from a perspective of the end results is an accelerated close of 2 days, coming off the closing process as a result of eliminating some manual processes, specifically around the data collection through the data management tool that comes out of the box with the financial close cloud solution, as well as just an overall greater confidence in the numbers. I think when you look at the disciplines that were established with the enterprise data management solution from an overall metadata structure, that just helps the overall reporting structure from record to report. So with that said, let's go into the specific questions and start with the first one. And Janine, from your perspective at Blue Cross, what was the main driver of considering moving to a cloud? You know, you saw Rich going through the evolution of the product and some of the roadmap items that are on the list, but what was the driving force from a standpoint at Blue Cross for the evolution to the cloud?
Well, with the changing structure within the healthcare environment right now, we really need to manage our costs as well as get our results quicker to our senior management so that they can make good financial decisions. So I think two of the driving factors was that we like the idea that we can avoid some of the upgrade costs. And we also like the idea that we were going to be on a common platform. And this is also part of our longer structure as far as we're going through a whole finance transformation. So I think those two were our two driving forces.
Excellent. And as you guys kind of dove in with from a standpoint of not just the consolidation, but we talked about planning and forecasting and the overall master data strategy. Obviously, that was a overall strategy for the IT department to get the on-premise solutions up onto the cloud, or in your case, in the consolidation solution, going from Excel to an actual custodial system. So from a standpoint of the overall timeline, you know, when you look at start to finish and maybe some of the critical aspects of an implementation plan, you know, what was some of the level of effort spent on data validation and or user acceptance?
Yes, it took longer than expected for us. I want to say it probably took maybe 5 months. And part of the problem was that we were on different platforms, the subsidiaries. We weren't on a common system. So the validation was more difficult than what we thought. And the other part of the problem was we were trying to implement an enterprise chart of accounts. So the combination of doing both of those made it a little bit more challenging than what we thought from the beginning.
But even from a standpoint of when you talk about the overall transformation and the fact that this was not just a lift and shift, you were actually redesigning the chart, taking advantage of the efficiencies that the product provides. You were under a 6-month time frame. Is that accurate?
That's the correct statement, and a better product when we were done.
And how many parallels did you guys engage from a overall timeline?
We did 3 parallels.
Okay, excellent. From a user acceptance perspective, during that time frame, what was the level of engagement from the user community, and how was it received?
It was received very well. Because it was a different mindset, to whereas in the manual process, folks were more looking at making sure that the right number got in the right box, to whereas now using the FCCS, we were able to be more analytical and more proactive. Since we were getting the data quicker, we were able to look and say, okay, does this make sense? And during our validation and during our testing, we were actually able to change processes.
Excellent. So, as you mentioned, the process transformation and the evolution of the tool, obviously users going from Excel to a custodial system is, requires some change management in itself. I think when we looked at the slide that Rich presented earlier, and you looked at the evolution of the product from, as Rich mentioned, the microcontrol days to, it was individuals that have maybe used Hyperion Financial Management or the on-premise solution and transforms now to the cloud. You look at almost over 30 years of best practice that has been built in to the offering that Oracle provides. Specifically, some of the out-of-the-box content like the cash flow or the movement dimension, the data source dimension, common design options that, is really a culmination of best practice from all the service providers over that time frame. That said, what did you leverage from an out-of-the-box standpoint, and how did it go for you?
What was key for us was we used the intercompany matching rule. And I can give you an example. Prior to having this capability for the 5 years I've been here, at year end, it would take us a week to manually look at my intercompany GL balances to get reasonably comfortable that the balances were good. We used FCCS for this year end, and it took me less than a day to actually get comfortable with all the intercompany balances by using this functionality.
That's awesome, and I think that's testament really when you look at the solutions that Blue Cross implemented, going all the way back to the master data strategy. I think that discipline that probably started with the transformation that you mentioned paid its dividends. And I think would it be a fair statement to say that the users were getting to the data quicker, maybe not spending as much time gathering the data or dealing with trying to identify the specific partners? Was there other benefits that they achieved from the solution?
Yes, the benefit was that we were able to analyze. So now that the system was actually doing the manual part of it, we could get the data, and I was able to go to my partners quicker with actual good questions, because I could see the trend from the months that, from the prior month on how intercompany and variance balances were looking. So we were able to really use I guess I just can't underestimate the analysis that we were able to use at year end, to whereas I never had the time before because we were so stuck in the manual process. If I had to quantify, I want to say prior to using this solution, 80% of my time was spent on the manual work, and I was only able to get to 20% analytics. This year, we were able to flip that, whereas 80% of my time was actually spent being analytical.
And would you say, like when you say the analytics, was most of that driven through SmartView? I think,
yes.
I think accountants sometimes when they hear going to a system, they're used to Excel, particularly in the case of Blue Cross where you were using Excel for the consolidation. They're afraid, well, they're not going to take Excel away from me, right? What was your experience with that, and do you leverage the SmartView capabilities extensively?
Yes, I use it a lot. And as you said, being heavily dependent on Excel, it was a natural transition for us to go into SmartView. And using SmartView, we were able to slice and dice the data to where, as I can see, and be analytical, and we can actually get to some of the raw material that we needed to actually make decisions.
So with that big of undertaking and mentioning the other products again, was there any surprises about the move? You know, any gotchas or things you'd want to tell another customer that maybe you should spend more time on during validation, or other areas that would help those on the phone?
No, there wasn't any surprises. I think the only surprise that came to us was we were truly able to actually see how much non-value time we were spending, and how we really needed to improve our processes. We knew it, but to actually see it it was just an eye-opener.
Oh, that's awesome. And I think from a standpoint, when you're able to look at the data from a different lens, maybe not just as easily be able to, you know, write over a cell in Excel and get a number and then have to try to provide transparency to that number. I think that's an incredible benefit just from the system itself. From a performance standpoint, you know, how has it been with your transition from Excel to a custodial system? And when I'm referring to performance, you know, obviously you saw benefits in the data gathering, but running consolidation, you know, the time it takes, what's been your experience with the performance of the solution?
We've only been in it since, like I said, October and November, and we haven't had any issues, especially during year end. It's been stable. It's been pretty quick.
Yeah, I would add to that in terms of like the data load, so we kind of automate the process where from the subsidiary files, from the GL, loading into FCCS, all that is almost, they drop the files into a server, and then we using EPM Automate, the files get immediately picked up, loaded into FCCS via data management, and it triggers consolidation. The process is end-to-end is seamless, and when Janine and the subsidiary is ready to go in, it just, you know, the data is already pre-consolidated, and if they need to enter journals, consolidate, and then post the journals, they immediately consolidate numbers, and it's a matter of less than a minute, I would say. Would you agree, Janine?
Right. Yes, it is. It's that quick.
So away from an overall, you know, project management standpoint and the overall timeline that Janine shared with us, were there any other areas of focus from a user acceptance or training that you'd like to highlight?
So in terms of, for Janine at Blue Cross Blue Shield, getting all the subsidiaries in, it's much of a change management journey because they are going from Excel, where there is a lot of flexibility for them to do whatever they need to do, which also creates some issues in terms of data integrity and whatnot. So getting them the journey into now, everything is kind of tightly controlled, tightly audited in the FCCS environment. That's a change in mindset. Also, the subsidiaries have to provide now more visibility in the numbers that they're submitting. It's also a change in mindset. But other than that, it's more like getting used to the tool, and we conducted a number of training sessions with the subsidiaries and also with Janine's team to make sure they're comfortable and on board and familiar with the tool to get through testing and then be production ready.
That's awesome. So I think, Janine, from your perspective, your legacy system was Excel. So for the users, as you mentioned, transition into SmartView, that seemed to be a pretty fluid process. Any other change management aspects that you'd like to highlight from a standpoint of even from an administrative perspective or a data movement perspective as it compares to how you did it the old way?
No, I think Wei explained it pretty accurately. For us, it was more of the change management, the mindset, because it is a very controlled environment now, to whereas we were, I don't want to give the impression that we weren't controlled being in Excel, but everything is tracked in FCCS. And with EDMCS, we have the master chart of accounts. So anytime now that someone wants to, say, move where an account is being reported, it has to be approved within EDMCS, which before it didn't. So I think that was the major item.
So from that standard workflow perspective, just the overall close orchestration from a standpoint of change control of the master data, all the way to the recording in the ERP, to the data movement to the consolidation engine. That was a fluid process that helped from a user experience perspective. So you were more analytical as opposed to possibility of adjusting the data on the fly. Although you have that capability with FCCS, it was just a more transparent process for the Blue Cross team.
Yeah.
You mentioned the transformation that you're going through, and the monthly update process that occurs from the patches. The first Friday of every month, Oracle releases a FCCS patch that goes into the test environment. You have time to test that, and then you can proceed to push that to production. How has that been? How have you adjusted to that process? Has that been a pretty fluid process for you?
So far it has, but I had the advantage because my team for the EPBCS, they are also on cloud, so we leverage their knowledge to help us with this, and so far we haven't had any major issues.
And that's a great point. From a common platform, the economies of scale you gain from that common platform, the fact that really FCCS is built on the same engine as EPBCS, that same process just flowed through, and you were able to adopt not just from the monthly patching process, but when you look at the backup and recovery, how data is stored with the backups, that whole process has been adopted fairly well, it seems like, for the Blue Cross team. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes, that's correct.
So from a standpoint of, Huron being the partner and Way being the project management driver of the solution, how did Huron help you through the process?
Well, I think the major thing where I think Way and her team was very beneficial to us was that coming from an Excel sheet, we had a lot of processes that were broken that we didn't realize were broken until we actually tried to put consolidation into a tool. Where they were very beneficial was that they would give us the options that was available through FCCS and EDMCS, and then we were able to select the best solution that not only fit our needs today, but actually fit into our long-term strategy since we are going to other EPM solutions.
Way, from your standpoint, obviously the wealth of experience you bring to the table from the implementations of Stripe, Dorman, you mentioned it, Duracell, Argo Insurance, Infinite Electronics, several Dropbox to draw from, several experiences with the cloud solutions. How were you able to help Blue Cross, given the evolution of the cloud from the early adopters in the May timeframe of I think 2016 to the advanced consolidation capabilities that have been developed through the product and as Rich showed in the roadmap? How did that help you in guiding Blue Cross through the implementation?
Yeah, so throughout the implementation, so we sit down with Janine to kind of understand what she does to her current state in terms of consolidating her numbers, in terms of requirements, and then I would provide her with options based on what we've seen at other clients, what we have done that's worked, and factoring into performance considerations and long-term considerations in terms of the future state transformation journey that she and her company is undertaking with moving to the cloud fusion. So providing her with the options and then helping her guide to make the right ones is how we factoring into the current solution that she has today.
Excellent. And from a standpoint of when you look at the overall data integration, passing data maybe from the financial consolidation solution to planning and forecasting, or even the integration from EDMCS, a lot of moving parts there, right? So from a standpoint of the knowledge of the product, that becomes a significant implementation consideration when selecting a partner. You want to have the partner that's done it several times, that has considerable exposure to the product and the product evolution, and understands the F-based platform, and those are key ingredients to the success of the project. Janine, when you look at what's next for your organization, you've accomplished quite a lot just in a short time. You mentioned the 6-month time frame to get up and running on FCCS. You've got the other cloud products and the overall EPM platform in place. You've undergone transformation, and I'm sure there's other transformation to be had. That said, are you looking to take advantage of maybe some robotics process automation or other key initiatives that would be on the plate for Blue Cross?
Yes, we are, and it's all part of our overall, we're going through what's called finance transformation, and all of our processes are being reviewed, and we're ensuring that it's fitting to the overall structure, which will be Oracle platform.
Excellent. And I think when we think about the prior slides and we look at the evolution of the product, and you think about the opportunities for integration with where we're seeing an evolution would be like with products like UiPath, Automation Anywhere, or Blue Prism, which are robotics process automation. There's the integration that is built into the financial close and consolidation solution that makes it an easy opportunity to take advantage of some of the robotics process automation, and currently at Huron, that's a key ingredient or differentiator for us when we look at the practice and some of the solutions we've built to add on or complement what you get with the overall out-of-the-box solutions that Oracle provides. I think one of the key benefits that we've heard here is when we look at the evolution of the cloud, and we think of maybe the prior implementations where there was a lot of VB script being written, the transparency, you had to rely on a consultant significantly even to understand what was behind the scenes. It feels like what I'm hearing is there's more configuration than, say, hardcore development or VB script. Would you say that was your experience, Janine?
Yes, I would.
Okay. In a way, I guess from your standpoint, from an implementation partner, obviously there's still customizations that need to occur, but from a navigational perspective or guiding a customer through the implementation, does it feel more like configuration or development from your aspect?
It is more configuration. I mean, as Rich has alluded to early in the presentation, FCC has come with a lot of already pre-configured rules already, like in terms of out-of-the-box calculation, like balance sheet roll forward, intercompany eliminations, the cash flow logic. All those stuff is already pre-built, but it's more like customizing to make sure it fits and supports Janine's kind of consolidation model. I guess the only thing where there might be a little more configuration is more on the integration side in terms of automating all the data files and metadata files transfer. But with that, it's, you know, when we implemented EDMCS, it was last year, and EPM Automate has not come out yet. So we had to put in like additional PowerShell scripts to automate the metadata files and mapping files that are loaded from EDMCS to FCCS. But other than that, everything is generally out of the box, and it's just a little bit more configuration to meet the requirements.
Excellent. So appreciate both of your time today. Janine, thank you very much for your contributions to the discussion. And I guess any other items you'd like to highlight before we close out or open it up for questions? If not, we can open it up for questions. If there's any questions in the audience that we could address in the last 4 minutes here. And
I think, Don, there's a question that says, what other EPM product is Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan using? I think, I don't know if you answered that.
So Janine, just to clarify the question, the other products that you are currently using, EDMCS, which is a master data strategy tool, handles the metadata. You're using EPBCS, which is the enterprise planning and budgeting cloud solution, and then FCCS, which was the main topic of conversation for the case study today, which is the financial close consolidation suite. Is that accurate? I think that complements everything.
Yep, that should be accurate.
Okay. Any other questions? So, the next steps are the call to action. Again, thank you very much, Janine, for your time. It was very insightful and I think very valuable to potential customers that may be evaluating the solution. And what I'd like to offer from a standpoint of Huron, being the leader in the space and having the most experience with the financial close cloud solution implementations, schedule some time with us. We'll come out, do an assessment of your current consolidation environment, discuss what an implementation effort would look like based on the experiences that you heard from Janine, as well as several other customers that were listed in one of the slides at the forefront across multiple industries. So we bring a wealth of experience to the table. We can talk about what a project timeline would look like, and be happy to do that for half a day. Come out, do an assessment, talk about how the solution would fit within your organization, and provide the right solution. As Rich mentioned, it's more than just rolling up the data and aggregating the data. There's several elements to the overall financial close. When you look at the close orchestration, the workflow around the close, that not just sits on top of financial close, but they can be used across several solutions. When you look at account reconciliations, tax provisioning, the integration that can occur between this common platform is invaluable, and I think we can bring our experience to that table and discuss with you. So my information is listed on the slide deck, as well as Rachel can provide the details for you to reach out to Huron. We'd welcome the opportunity to speak with you and share our experience. Thank you, Rich, for your guidance on the roadmap and the Oracle product development area. Thank you again to Janine and Wei for your contributions on the call. If there's no further questions, I think we'll close out the webinar. Thank you for your time today.